There was a time when cigarette names meant more than nicotine. They meant corner shops with faded signs, pubs that smelt of smoke and beer, and evenings spent outside factory gates as the day wound down. Brands like Woodbine, Players Navy Cut, or Park Drive were once as British as red buses and rainy pavements. For some, they're memories of fathers and grandfathers. For others, they're names you've never heard. And that's the mystery. If you enjoy stories that keep Britain's forgotten past alive, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because what happened to these cigarette brands says far more about Britain than you might expect. 1. Players Navy Cut, Smoke of the Docks, and the Post-War Man. For decades after the Second World War, Players Navy Cut was everywhere Britain worked. On docks in Liverpool, outside shipyards in Portsmouth, in pubs thick with smoke, where men still wore flat caps and heavy coats. Launched by John Player and Sons, the brand built its identity around the Royal Navy, with packaging that felt sturdy, masculine, dependable. In the 1950s and early 1960s, Navy Cut wasn't fashionable, it was familiar. It sold in vast numbers because it suited the time, strong tobacco, no nonsense, affordable. But as Britain modernised, its image began to age badly. The naval branding felt old-fashioned, even uncomfortable, in a country questioning tradition. By the late 1970s, sales declined sharply. Advertising restrictions and shifting tastes finished the job. Navy Cut didn't just disappear from shelves, it quietly slipped out of everyday life, like the docks it once belonged to. 2. Woodbine, the cigarette of the street corner. Woodbine was never glamorous, and that was the point. For much of the early and mid-20th century, Woodbine was the cigarette of factory gates, building sites, and street corners, cheap, strong, and unfiltered. It was the choice of working-class Britain long before smoking became aspirational. By the 1940s and 50s, Woodbine accounted for millions of cigarettes sold each week across the UK. You smelled it before you saw it. But the world moved on. Filters became popular. Health concerns grew louder. And by the 1960s, Woodbine felt harsh, even brutal, compared to newer brands. As regulations tightened and tastes softened, Woodbine's rough honesty became a liability. Production slowed, then stopped. Yet for many older Britons, the memory remains sharp. A Woodbine between fingers, smoke curling into cold air, life carried on regardless. 3. Kingsway, smoking the modern way. When Kingsway arrived in 1959, Britain was changing. Television was everywhere. Youth culture was emerging. The brand's slogan said it all: smoke the big way, the modern way. Kingsway positioned itself as confident, forward-looking, and proudly mass market. Throughout the 1960s and into the 70s, it became one of the best-selling cigarettes in the UK, popular with younger smokers who wanted something contemporary without paying premium prices. It fitted the era of pop music, motorways, and new towns. But modernity moves fast. By the late 1970s, Kingsway faced fierce competition from smoother, lighter brands. Advertising bans removed its biggest strength, visibility. Without the billboards and TV spots, Kingsway lost its voice. Sales fell. Gradually, it faded from shop counters, remembered now as a symbol of Britain's brief, optimistic, modern moment. 4. Park Drive, London nights in a red pack. Park Drive belonged to the city, especially London. In the 1970s, it was the cigarette of pubs near Soho, late buses, and neon-lit streets. Slightly stylish, slightly rebellious, it appealed to smokers who wanted something sharper than traditional brands, but cheaper than luxury ones. Park Drive advertisements leaned into urban cool, confident faces, nightlife energy, movement. It sold well during a decade when London culture felt dangerous and exciting in equal measure. But the 1980s were less forgiving. Health warnings grew larger. Advertising spaces vanished. The brand's edgy identity lost its platform. Without promotion, Park Drive struggled to justify its place among stronger rivals. Eventually, it disappeared completely. Today, it survives only in memory, the cigarette of a night out that never quite ended, in a city that no longer exists. 5. Silk Cut, Style, Art, and the 1980s. Silk Cut was different. Launched in the 1960s but truly iconic in the 1980s, it became famous not for tobacco strength, but for image. Its surreal, minimalist advertising, torn silk, bold colors, no cigarettes shown, turned restrictions into art. It appealed to designers, creatives, and those who wanted smoking to feel refined. Sales peaked during the mid-1980s, especially among younger urban professionals. But Silk Cut's success relied heavily on advertising mystery. When further bans stripped that away, the brand lost its cultural edge. Health campaigns also targeted lighter cigarettes more aggressively. While the name lingered, the classic Silk Cut era vanished. What remains is the memory of a time when cigarette ads were art, and smoking briefly pretended to be beautiful. 6. Embassy Regal, a touch of aspiration. Embassy Regal sat quietly between everyday smoking and quiet ambition. Introduced in the 1970s, it wasn't flashy, but it felt just a little more refined. You'd see it on coffee tables, in hotel lounges, or resting beside a pint glass in a smarter pub. The gold and red packaging suggested success without shouting about it. Embassy Regal thrived during a period when Britain's middle class was expanding, when people wanted small signs of progress. But that positioning became fragile as health warnings intensified in the late 1980s and advertising disappeared. Brands without deep loyalty struggled. Embassy Regal lost its distinction. It wasn't cheap enough to be everyday, nor iconic enough to be aspirational. Gradually, retailers stopped stocking it. No announcement, no farewell, just gone, like the quiet ambitions it once represented. 7. Rothman's King Size, Power, Speed, and Status. Rothman's King Size projected confidence. From the 1960s onwards, the brand became associated with success, masculinity, and performance. Rothman's sponsored Formula One teams, motorsport events, and high-profile sports, embedding itself into Britain's culture of speed and competition. The king-size format itself suggested more tobacco, more presence, more authority. It sold strongly among professionals and businessmen throughout the 1970s and early 80s. But sponsorship bans hit hard. When tobacco branding was pushed out of sport, Rothmans lost a vital stage. At the same time, public attitudes towards smoking shifted dramatically. What once looked powerful began to feel outdated. The king-size image no longer fit a cautious, health-aware Britain. Eventually, the product vanished from shelves, leaving behind memories of a louder, faster era. 8. Benson & Hedges, Britain's gold standard. For years, Benson & Hedges represented premium smoking in Britain. The gold box was instantly recognisable. It implied quality, taste, and tradition. During the 1970s and early 1980s, it was one of the UK's top-selling premium brands, often chosen for special occasions rather than everyday use. It featured heavily in television sponsorships and high-end advertising before bans took effect. But its success made it a target. As regulations tightened, premium brands were criticised for glamorizing smoking. Plain packaging stripped away Benson & Hedges' strongest asset, its identity. Without its gold, it became just another cigarette. Sales declined steadily. While the name still exists in some form, the classic British Benson and Hedges era disappeared. What remains is the memory of elegance, now impossible to recreate. 9. Players number 6. Familiar, then forgotten. Players number 6 was once a dependable choice. Not exciting, not cheap, just reliable. Popular in the post-war decades, it sat comfortably on shop shelves across the UK. Smokers didn't choose it for image, they chose it because it was always there. By the 1960s, it had built a quiet loyalty among older smokers. But loyalty wasn't enough. As filters improved, branding sharpened, and legislation reshaped the market, Number 6 struggled to stand out. It had no strong modern identity to fall back on. Gradually, retailers stopped ordering it. Younger smokers never noticed. Older ones did. One day it simply wasn't available anymore, and that disappearance felt personal, like losing something ordinary you never expected to miss. 10. Lambert and Butler, the cigarette of home. Lambert and Butler feels deeply British because it feels domestic. It was the cigarette kept in kitchen drawers, coat pockets, and sideboards. Common from the 1970s onwards, it was affordable, consistent, and unpretentious. Many remember parents or grandparents smoking Lambert and Butler while watching television in the evening, windows cracked open. It wasn't about style, it was about routine. But routines changed. Smoking indoors vanished. Social attitudes hardened. Regulations tightened further. Over time, Lambert and Butler lost its place in everyday family life. While the name survives in limited forms, the era it belonged to has gone. For many, its disappearance marked the end of smoking as something ordinary and the end of a certain kind of British evening. These cigarette brands were never just products on a shelf. They were part of Britain's everyday rhythm, carried through factory shifts, pub conversations, late buses home, and quiet evenings by the television. From docklands and high streets to living rooms and corner shops, they reflected who Britain was and who it was becoming between the 1950s and the 1980s. If you'd like to keep exploring forgotten top lists of British brands, places, and everyday icons from that era, click through and watch our next video in the series. And if these stories stirred a memory or taught you something new, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts or personal recollections below. Until next time, thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.